It is tempting for early-stage researchers to identify a broad, real-world problem and immediately start collecting data to solve it. In the formal research model, problem definition sits alone. Jumping directly to test design guarantees wasted effort. You will likely rediscover existing knowledge. Step 4, the critical literature review, is the required structural bridge connecting your inquiry to your theoretical framework. Amateurs treat this step as an administrative hurdle, compiling annotated bibliographies that merely list what others have written. The literature review is an engineering phase. Your objective is to process raw academic data and convert it into a precise, solvable equation. A rigorous review ensures you build efficiently on verified knowledge, preventing you from dedicating years to a question the academic community solved a decade ago. When you initiate a database query, you are met with an overwhelming volume of unstructured information. Thousands of papers, books, and digital files. You must deploy a systematic filtering mechanism to strip away the unregulated noise and isolate objective, verifiable academic signals. This diagram shows a multi-tiered filtering funnel. At the apex, peer-reviewed journals survive rigorous expert scrutiny, serving as a mandatory proxy for quality. We measure their structural importance using citation impact factors. The middle tier catches foundational textbooks, while the bottom tier catches unregulated internet sources, which trigger warning indicators and demand severe scrutiny. When assessing recent research, evaluate the justification of methods, the appropriateness of the sample size, and whether conclusions align with findings. Incorporating opinion-based or unmonitored digital sources into your foundational argument introduces fatal bias into your entire project. The integrity of your final theoretical framework is strictly tacked by the quality of the data sources you select in this filtering phase. The most common failure point in Step 4 is producing a chronological summary. A summary lists findings in isolation. Author A discovered this in 1998, author B discovered that in 2002. This mechanical recitation generates zero new insight. Your cognitive target is synthesis. To synthesize is to extract distinct, competing elements from the literature and combine them to form a completely new whole. Look at this split-screen layout analyzing organizational effectiveness. On the left is the failed approach, a simple chronological list of citations. Summarizing OE literature creates a disjointed roster of names, Georgopoulos, Etzioni, Katz, without explaining how their ideas interact. This linear format actively masks the underlying fractures and contradictions present in the current academic consensus. This dynamic matrix demonstrates the synthesis method. Core variables are extracted and grouped into conceptual zones. Mapping these distinct models reveals a massive gap, proving the lack of a unified definition. Synthesizing these viewpoints identifies contingency approaches, attempting to bridge this gap. Analyzing those contingency approaches reveals their specific limitation. They focus on dominant constituencies, but ignore broader, dynamic factors, like an organization's life cycle. Isolating that exact limitation provides you with a precise, highly targeted entry point for a new, original hypothesis. Conceptual synthesis is the mechanism that reveals the structural gaps in existing literature. Those gaps are exactly where new scientific discoveries are made. A synthesized literature review directly produces the testable variables required for deductive research. Consider an applied study aimed at solving severe process bottlenecks in a high-volume service environment, like an airport security line. This diagram shows an empty structural box representing your theoretical framework. The literature review filters prior research to dictate exactly which specific variables must drop in to populate the model. There is a severe risk of omission. You must identify every causal variable. If a true variable is excluded, the true reason remains hidden, and the entire research project becomes an exercise in futility. The literature review also provides the standardized terminology required to define these extracted variables precisely. Instead of vague descriptions, you adopt established terms, differentiating between pre-process, in-process, and post-process weights. This precision prevents contextual confusion in academic writing. Extracting verified variables and applying standardized terminology ensures your new research measures the actual root cause of a problem rather than just a symptom. Because modern research relies entirely on building upon previous work, absolute precision in attribution is a strict ethical mandate. This network visually represents the chain of verification. Purposely misrepresenting a prior author's findings corrupts the node, poisoning the dataset downstream. Providing inaccurate source locations perpetually severs the chain completely, making it impossible to audit your data. Others commit the resourceful citer error, assembling a paper with perfect citations and quotation marks, but zero original synthesis or thought. And then there is the perfect crime, paraphrasing a complex argument without attributing the logic to the source, falsely claiming the intellectual discovery as your own. A peer reviewer must be able to seamlessly trace every claim you make back to its origin to validate your new theoretical framework. Without flawless attribution, the global scientific debate degrades into untraceable noise, rendering any new hypothesis structurally invalid. Returning to the complete research flowchart, Step 4, the critical literature review, is now fully activated. Successfully completing this synthesis transforms you from an external observer into an integrated subject matter expert. Verified, synthesized knowledge flows directly out of the literature review, illuminating the theoretical framework and generation of hypotheses phases to create a functional circuit of deductive reasoning. The early-stage researcher operates under 4 mandates: read widely, evaluate ruthlessly, synthesize conceptually, and attribute flawlessly. Mastering this workflow permanently contextualizes your effort within the wider academic debate. A rigorous critical literature review is the foundational architecture required to push the boundary of human knowledge forward.